Yo, what's going on guys? Hanging Hunt Outdoors here. My name is Dimitri, back with another video. In today's video, we're going to be going over tips and tricks to greatly improve your archery skill and consistency. If you guys are ready, let's go ahead and jump right into it. So I've actually made a similar video to this on the channel. If you guys haven't seen it, I'll go ahead and link it in the description below, or it should pop up in the corner over here. Basically, it's the same kind of video, but in this video, we're going to be going over specific things in a little bit more in depth. So first things first, my first tip for you guys to help with your consistency in archery is going to be dial in your stabilizers. Now I said this in the last video, I'm going to say it again. Working on like perfecting how you have your weight distribution on your bow is going to crazily impact the way that your bow holds at full draw. And I would also recommend playing around with these right here. So this right here is a Shrewd quick disconnect. It's an 8-degree down. The reason why I would recommend trying to looking at an 8-degree down instead of like the regular ones that are 0 degrees, they just stick straight out, is because it kind of lowers the center of gravity of the weight on the front of your bow. And that basically makes it so that when you're at full draw, your bow naturally kind of wants to pivot downwards and stay straight up and down. So that's going to really help you with your bubble, getting that level. And I don't really know how to explain it in a better way, but it just basically turns your bow straight up and vertical, and instead of you having a figure 8 motion with your bow like sweeping back and forth, it's just kind of like a dip like this, and that makes it really easy to steady up and get your shot off, and your pin is just holds a lot nicer. So that's going to be my first tip. So my second tip is going to be finding a release that really suits you and that you shoot the best. Now, it's kind of tricky because you really have to go to a bow shop. You don't want to buy 10 releases and then have to return them all. Go to a bow shop, find a release that really fits you. This right here is the Scott Ascent Micro. I absolutely love this thing. It's like a micro tunable click and fire for this thing. You can adjust how hot it is. There's the two sides right here. One adjusts how much rotation you have until the click, and then one adjusts the click to fire. This thing is great. I absolutely love it. I shoot my very best with this release right here. A couple videos ago, we shot and tested this. This is the Stan Onyx Clicker thumb button release. I really like this release. I shoot it pretty well. Not as good as the hinge, but this is going to be my hunting release that I take into the woods with me, just because it is a little easier to almost command or punch a shot with this than it is going to be with the hinge release. So that's that. So while we do this, I'm just going to take a few shots. I haven't shot in a few days, so we're just going to shoot on camera with you guys while you're here. Now, unfortunately, what the hell happened to my 35 yards? Now, unfortunately, I don't have a camera set up down there. Would you look at that? I'm almost at 35 yards already. Unfortunately, I don't have a target cam set up down there, or a target face. This is just going to be me really shooting, just basically blank bail. Nice. On to the next tip. So we have stabilizer setups. We have releases that you're going to want to get figured out what shoots better for you. And my next thing I'm going to say is getting your bow properly tuned. Now, whether you do it yourself, whether you take it to a shop, make sure that you get it paper tuned. I know a lot of shops don't believe in paper tuning, and I believe that is more of a time saving tactic more than they actually don't believe in it. Getting your bow properly tuned, whether you do it yourself, you can follow along to a couple of videos that I have out that go over how to properly tune your bow. Doing that is huge because it's going to basically minimize the swirl, when the arrow shoots out of your bow, you want it to be as straight as possible with no influence from a string, snapping back and forth, because it's off-centered from your rest. A properly tuned bow and an arrow shooting straight off of your bow is just going to shoot better than a bow that's not properly set up or properly tuned. It's just as simple as that. You're going to be more consistent. Arrow flight's going to be more consistent. Just trust, okay? Just trust and get your bow properly tuned. It's going to make a huge deal, and you will actually find yourself getting tighter groups than you've ever had before. So tip number 4 is going to be dialing in your poundage of your bow and draw length. Now, me personally, I like a heavier poundage bow. I go to the gym, I always liked heavier poundage bows. I felt like in full draw or at full draw, they were always a little bit more stable if I had a heavier bow than if I didn't. People who don't shoot very often, or people who don't have a huge build, it doesn't really make sense to get a 75-pound bow if you're like shaking in if you're shaking at full draw. That doesn't make any sense. It's not going to help you shoot better. This is a controversial take here. Shoot the heaviest poundage that you can without it sacrificing how you hold. The reason why I say that is because if you shoot as heavy as possible while it's still being comfortable, that weight that's pulling against you when you're further back is actually going to stabilize your shot better than if you were just using your shoulder muscles to try to stabilize. Now, if that doesn't make sense, let me explain it this way. In target archery, you can choose what percentage of weight you have at full draw. You can choose 70%, 75%, 80% let off, and that basically means that it'll cut the full draw weight down by 75, 80% at full draw. So if you have like a 75-pound bow minus 75%, that's what you're holding at full draw. And target bows, they have a huge amount of adjustment in that. With Matthews, I believe that they have a 75 and 80% for their hunting bows, or 80 and 85. Play around with that, because that's going to really help you hold and stay stable at full draw if you have a heavier let off and at full draw you're holding more weight. I know that may seem crazy and completely contradicting of what most people tell you, but it is the truth. You will be able to hold more stable if you're holding a little bit more weight. So that's number 4, tip number 4 that I have for you guys. So tip number 5 actually has nothing to do with the bow itself. Let me explain. So tip number 5 has to do with the arrows that you're shooting. Now, if you don't plan to put a broadhead on the front of your arrows for hunting, and these are just like target or 3D arrows, you don't have to get the top of the line straightest arrows that you can find. Most arrows have a straightness scale, especially Victory. They have an elite, a sport, or a gamer, and then a sport. So the elites are plus or minus 1/1000th of an inch over the length of a 32-inch or 31-inch carbon arrow. Now, does that differ from time to time? Yes, you can play around and cut from one end or the other to get the straightest possible arrow. Then there's the gamer, which is 3/1000ths straightness over the length of the arrow, and then there's the sport, which is 6/1000ths over the length of the arrow. Like I said, if you're not planning to put a broadhead on the front of this, I would recommend getting the cheaper option. But if you are going to use the arrow for hunting, and you are going to put a broadhead on the front of it, especially a fixed blade, get the straightest arrows you can possibly find. A lot of them are going to be within 1/1000ths. That's kind of like the standard for the straightness of their top end arrows, within 1/1000th of an inch, which is crazy straight. I have put a big fixed blade on here, and I shot this setup with this bow. I shot my broadhead first at like 50 yards, hit dead smack where my field points are going, shot this afterward, and both of my arrows were touching each other. So even though there was a broadhead on this thing, a big fixed blade broadhead, it still went exactly where my field points were impacting, and I only have AAE Pro Max vanes on here. Not very big vanes at all, not something I would recommend you shoot with fixed blade broadheads, but these stabilize it just fine. And yeah, my arrow went right where my broadhead arrow went, right where my field point arrow went, which is huge. That's exactly what you want. Now, this also kind of relates back to the tip number 3 that I had, which is a properly tuned bow. Without a properly tuned bow, your broadheads and your field points they're just going to impact in different spots. There's no getting around that. So, very important if you're hunting, a properly tuned bow is arguably more important than a target bow being tuned. If it's not, your broadheads and your field points are just not going to impact in the same spot. Give me 2 seconds, there's something moving around back there. It's a very large group of turkeys digging around in the leaves. That's hilarious. Let's take another shot here. I promise I'm going to try very hard not to hit a turkey back there. Just kidding, they're not in front of the target at all. But let's go ahead and take another shot. Yep, this time I'll use the thumb button. We'll use the stand. I've been going back and forth a lot between these guys, so let's see how this goes. That held and fired fantastic. But let's go ahead and move on to tip number 6, which is going to be what kind of sight you use. Now again, this is another controversial take. Me personally, I really like sliding sights. A lot of hunters don't like sliding sights because they don't want to have to, account for that and move it up and down. They can't make adjustments on the fly if a deer is moving, 10 feet or 20 feet and you have like a sliding sight and you're at full draw. You can't really let down, adjust it, and pull back again. Sometimes that opportunity just isn't there. So that's why a lot of people are against having sliding sights. Me personally, I really like them from an archery standpoint, target archery standpoint. This is the only sight that I would ever recommend you get is a sliding sight or some kind of movable sight. It's just kind of what you get. Oh my God, they're all in the yard, just running up on me. They're right here. Look they're not scared of me. Let's see, how close can I get? Look at them like looking at me. That one back there is lost. I don't know how well you're gonna pick up on that, but yep, right there. Literally right behind me. So for tip number 6, well, I have 30 turkeys behind me, is going to be your form and your anchor points. Now, anchoring at full draw, what I really like to do is with my hinge style release, I will take the V that's kind of in between my index finger and my middle finger, that V that it creates, and I will take that and put it right up against my jaw, but then my knuckles, I like to kind of push into the back portion of my jawbone right there. And that's a super consistent way to shoot. I feel like I can get basically in the same spot within a 32nd of an inch every single time. That's huge. And then at full draw, this is kind of, archery is really tough to explain and give tips on because there's so many different variables for each thing. So your draw length is going to basically influence your form. So having the right draw length is really important. Basically, you want your shoulder to be flat, like this. You want it to be completely flat. And you want your arm to be not totally hyperextended. You want it just locked out, fully out. And then you want this forearm right here to be in line with your arrow and level. And then if you look behind me, you want it to be pointing forward and straight back of your target that you're aiming at. And when you shoot, you want to explode through like that. And that right there, if you can dial in your draw length and you can dial in your anchor points to get that motion right there, that is going to be huge and it's going to help you become very repeatable, and each shot is going to be exactly the same every time. It's going to help you with your groups, and afterward, once you get dialed in, you'll be smacking arrows left and right, and you're going to have to start shooting in different spots because your arrows are going to be damaging other arrows. So that's tip number 6. My very last tip for you guys is get out there and practice as much as possible. The only way to get better is by doing it. I can't tell you how many times, like especially me, I just recently got into golfing. I've only been like 3 times, and I get so frustrated with myself when I suck. Sorry if that's insensitive, but if you suck at something, you got to practice until you get better. I suck at golf. I got to practice until I get better. Pretty decent at archery, so that's why I give tips on this stuff. Practice, practice, practice. Get out there as often as you possibly can. Shoot as many arrows through your bow as often as you possibly can. It's going to help you get better. It's going to help you get more accurate. And you're just going to know what to do in certain situations because you know your equipment. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. Thank you to these turkeys behind me for the audience. I really appreciate it. If you guys want to get entered into a giveaway, make sure that you go over to our website. It's completely free to enter. It'll be on the home screen. You can just see it, a little tab that says giveaway entry. Go check it out. Go get entered to win. If you guys want merch, like the sweatshirt that you can't really see because it's covered, make sure you head over to our website. We have it under apparel. We now have channel merch for you guys. We have hats, sweatshirts, t-shirts. We just came out with a new Target Archery t-shirt, so if you're into that, make sure you go over there and check it out. It'll really support the channel. It's one of the best ways to support the channel besides subscribing and liking. So if you guys like the video, hit that like button. If you guys want to see more content just like this, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll catch you in the next one. That was really loud. Ciao. With turkeys behind me.